questions that I was around, people asking, how long is it?
It's
Because you finished it.
I finished it, and it's more than amply long enough. It depends on how long you're gonna invest in it. But even if you just like straight stream through it, ignoring everything that you could to just get through it as fast as you can, it's going to take you easily over 12 hours.
Really?
And easily.
I heard 20 hours.
Oh, it's well over 20 hours if you're playing the game and having fun with it.
Yeah,
that's plenty.
I watched a couple of people who were like just hardcore powering through it, ignoring everything in the game, and I think you could maybe finish it in 14 or so. But you'd like, why would the fuck would you do that?
Right.
That would be just dig into the game.
There's a lot of people that play Metal Gear and skip the cutscenes if they can. So there's a bunch of people that'll.
Yeah,
play
I would highly. I mean, anybody who's playing the game to enjoy it is going to be investing well over 20 hours on it, and you're definitely going to play it more than once.
And graphics, like it look as good as it has looked.
Absolute showpiece for the 360. I played it on the 360. Absolute showpiece for the 360. Like, I can't tell you how many times I walked up to the edge of one of those like aquarium-like connectors in the city where you're like in this tunnel with plexiglass,
right,
and just stood there and looked out the glass window at the city and was like, the fuck, this is amazing.
I know you can't talk about the story specifically, but I do want to talk about it in sort of somewhat larger terms,
okay,
and the whole philosophy behind it, that the hate that they got from all the utopian people.
the utopists.
This was news to me that they got heat from utopian people.
Angry utopian people.
People complaining that the Randian utopia cannot fail. So the fact that it's about the failure of a Randian utopia is bad, and Ken Levine is evil. But however, from what I've seen, I mean, I've only ever seen the different ways that you can shoot at things and blow shit up, mm-hmm, and chase after things, and I'm wondering how that gels with what we'd been led to believe is a pretty deep and pretty complete mythology that it's built around. I mean, how is that articulated, and how is the story presented?
Let me back out then one layer and tell you that, to me, the game that after I was thinking about the experience playing the game and trying to put a handle on the whole of it, that this game is the game that finally for me trumps me playing the original Half-Life. And by that, I was thinking about, like, when I was going through the 2 labs and as Gordon Freeman the first time, and there was that experience of all this stuff that's going on, and you're not necessarily sure
mm-hmm,
at any time who's the good guys, mm-hmm, who's the bad guys, who's helping you, what you ought to be doing, but at the same time you have this purpose of, I have to get the fuck across to the other site.
Mm-hmm.
So you're being pushed forward, and you're going through these environments, and you don't know what's going on, and there's always that sense of stuff that's going to surprise you, whether it's a surprise in the next room or it's a surprise in the context of what's happening in the game plot, and that's what BioShock really captured.
Did you play System
Did that
Shock
answer your
2?
question?
Kinda. I mean, I'm just wondering how it communicates that, because like System Shock did it through a voiceover and a lot of things that you interacted with.
Right.
Like there'd be a lot of like going to a computer panel and reading someone's log or reading diaries, or the way that they kind of fiddled with a little bit in Doom. Do you remember?
Yeah.
The PDAs.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that was a bad Doom. That was a bad
But Doom's a bad example. So
System Shock was a good example. Doom 3.
Yeah. So this mechanic can be done very well, or it can be done very badly, and it's not cutscenes really.
I think what they did in this that actually works is there's no cutscenes. What they did in this that actually works is they used a combination of different vehicles to deliver that. So yes, there is a element of the PDA. In this case, they're like these diary entries, and they're like audio diary entries, and you seek them out, and you definitely start seeking them out because the little nuggets that you get in them are really good. But there's also characters that are, I mean, incredibly bizarre and cool characters that you meet along the way that interact with you and offer you other things that you can do, like other side missions, so
optional type stuff.
And you want to do all those things. Anything that someone offers you as something to do, you want to do because you'll gain more background in the story. You'll learn more about what's going on. There's always there's like a PA system in Rapture, and so you'll have different people at different times talking to you. And
so there's a lot of audio cues.
There's a ton of audio.
So going back to the diaries a minute, because like one of the things that a lot of games that have done this before is you'll go to a station and it'll trigger either an audio or a video thing, and then you have to like sit there and and
Right.
then the
System
and
Shock 2 did not do that.
Right. So
Doom
can
3
you
didn't
Bioshock does not do that.
So can
Yeah.
you trigger it and then just listen to it while you go and get on with other stuff?
Right.
Absolutely, and you can also just throw it in your backpack and then
listen
to it later.
Yeah.
But what I found myself typically doing was doing exactly what you're saying. I'd pick them up. It has a little. So it throws a little icon up in the top right-hand side of the screen. It tells you the name of it. It shows you the speaker's face, and it says press A to play. You press A to play, and it starts playing, and you can run around. If they start to say something interesting, then you might want to bring up the pause screen so you can actually pay attention to it.
So you can be in a firefight listening to someone's diary.
Well, I mean, suppose theoretically you could. You wouldn't want to because you'd.
Right, I know, but
yeah.
it is like like popping the earphones on, listen to a podcast while you're trundling around doing something.
You could absolutely do that.
So what puts this into? What surprised you? What puts this in the game of the year contention? Give us the.
Once you pick up the controller and go into Rapture, you will not want to put it down. You will be.
It's atmosphere. Is it controls?
Yes. Yes.
Pacing.
Yes.
Probably the pacing.
The pacing is. Let me tell you what. The pacing might be the best pacing in a first-person shooter ever. There is one stretch that is maybe like some people will say, "Oh, this is a little hokey," but outside of that, and even that I don't think is bad. Outside of that, every time you pick up the controller to play it, you're gonna be like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and you're moving through it and you're pushing through it, and you're like, wow, there's so much to see, there's so much to do. The shooting, first of all, I was concerned about the quality of the shooter part of it because it is a first-person shooter,
right?
And it handles the gunplay so incredibly well, and the AI of the enemies that you play against is phenomenal. You hear that stories, they use cover and da-da-da. You don't ever feel like, they're going to use cover. You feel like you're dancing around these environments, fighting them in almost like a multiplayer game. Like, because you have to chase people, and sometimes they'll lead you into some of their buddies, and sometimes they're just off doing their thing. And you come across, that's one of the things I didn't know. You can actually play this game like a stealth game. You could play this game very Tom Clancy-ish.
But best first-person shooter ever, really?
No, not the best first-person shooter.
No, in terms
ever.
of I can't remember what you said. Like now, in terms of the way that the story unfolds, yeah.
Yeah.
Better than Half-Life or Half-Life 2.
Yes. Absolutely. This is the imagination that has gone into this crazy, I'm going to be an industrialist and build this utopian society, and then the examination of what happened inside. If you think about, here's the beauty of the story, is the story doesn't slap you in the face with the details of why Rapture has fallen into the melee, and it's fallen apart. But if you think about the motivations that the characters have and what's going on in there, you start to understand that these guys actually really thought out the answer to why that utopian failed.
So it actually has subtlety in its story, which is because that's something so many games lack.
It's
even games that I like the story, like Metal Gear, Vamp the Vampire.
And I guess the final part for me is
right. A little more thought next time, please. Yeah.
And I'm big on conclusions. And the conclusion on this game, it not only is the conclusion satisfying, but the lead up to the conclusion is brings everything home really, really well.
Leave it open for sequels?
Well, Ken's already talked about BioShock 2 because, when people have pressed him on multiplayer issue, he said BioShock 2.
Okay.
There's not another utopian society that failed.
Well,
this one over here.
Without spoiling it and getting into massage chairs.
There's not one ending.
You still bummed about the massage chair?
I'll never play the darkness the same. You've ruined it. You've ruined it for me.
Well, the darkness didn't offer you nearly so many issues to play with, but there was some shades of gray in that. I mean, because that's what we're going to talk about here in the second segment is how game design has started to maybe mature. I mean, we're hopeful that at least it's a sign of it maturing, where you're going to have choices and you can have the experience of the game and still approach it in your own personal way. That's what we're going to talk about when we come back in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it.
This show is brought to you by the Entertainment Consumers Association. Protect your right to game and join the ECA at theeca.com.
All right, we're back and ready to head into